Welcome to Roar Healing Stories. I'm your host, Ellen Line. Before we dive in, I wanted to let y'all know that we are about halfway through season 1 of Roar Healing Stories. And in season 2, I would like to open up to guests that I don't have a pre-existing relationship, which is who I really focused on in season 1. And so to do that, I am inviting you, if you have a healing story that you want to share on this podcast, to reach out. I'm going to link a form in the show notes that you can use, and that just collects a little bit of information from you. It helps me know a little bit more about you and about your healing story. And that's the first step to becoming a guest on the show. I would love to hear from you. And with that, let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Roar Healing Stories podcast. I am so excited for my guest today. My guest today is Gillian Gregory, and Gillian has been way back 6 years ago when we first started working together. I was a baby social worker, and Gillian helped me become like a full-fledged big girl social worker. And ever since then, we've been working together. Gillian has become a mentor and a consultant for me as I've learned how to be the therapist that I am today. And so I have immense respect for Gillian's practice and how she infuses her own personhood and journey into her healing work. And so we're going to get a little bit into talking about all of that today. And so I'm going to turn it over. Gillian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Ellen. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited,
Yeah.
and have been equally appreciative of our work
Mhm.
together. Yes,
Mhm.
so thank you.
Yeah.
Um, yes, I'm Gillian. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have been practicing
Mhm.
since about 2002, 2003,
Yeah.
as a therapist,
Mhm.
and I've been in private practice for about 12 years. I see couples, individuals, families, groups.
Mhm.
Um, and I also teach at Towson University in the Family Science Department. Much of my work there has been in experiential learning, so supporting students and developing the capacity to work in the field, so applying practice or knowledge to practice through internships and service learning.
Mhm.
And I love both. I love what I do. And I also do clinical supervision for social workers who are in process of gaining their advanced licensure.
Mhm.
And I love that work as well. So it all kind of works together. And it allows me to kind of utilize my skills, my expertise to
Yeah.
support, people in this work.
Ugh, I love that. Yeah, I feel so lucky to have been getting to be learning from you and to still be learning from you. Yeah, and I'm so excited to get to share a little bit more about you and your journey. And so, in that vein, tell us about your healing journey.
Healing journey, which
Yeah,
I think is ongoing
yeah.
for most of us, right? And that's one of the things that I've learned in healing, that there's no hard, fast stop. It's just next level, right? Which once you realize that, then it's okay. But I think, you think you finished the work and then you realize, oh no, I'm not. I have more to do.
Yes.
So I would say my healing journey, I think there were two parts to it. I think my initial healing journey came in my 20s,
Mm,
probably early to mid 20s.
mhm,
Um, and the root of that was just some thoughts, feelings, issues, challenges that I internalized as a result of my parents' marriage.
mm,
And so not fully understanding the dynamic of a healthy relationship,
mhm,
and witnessing and observing the conflict that my parents experienced,
mhm,
um, and internalizing that, and,
mm,
and kind of taking that on as my own.
Mm,
And so that manifested in different ways. I think the most clear way is that I had a lot of negative thoughts and feelings that I didn't necessarily vocalize or understand about men.
mm,
And so it would manifest through romantic relationships.
mhm,
And the interesting thing is, throughout this time, I started having conversations with my father
mm,
about some of the choices he made, and just better understanding his own journey and how that evolved into the relationship with my mom and how things fell apart.
mm,
While also being engaged in my own dysfunction and kind of playing out what I thought relationships look like.
mm,
Knowing deep down that this wasn't okay, like it didn't feel good.
mhm,
But I was really just manifesting the fears that I carried, right?
mm, mhm,
I remember when I was 10, I told my mother that I wanted to have children, but I wanted to raise them alone. I didn't want to raise them with a father.
mm,
And I realized, obviously, as an adult, that for me, that just meant that I did not see the possibility of raising children in a healthy, loving environment. And I
mm,
thought that it just created conflict and pain, and I didn't
mm,
want that.
mhm.
So I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm just going to do this by myself. Um, and it's not that my parents, it's not that our family system was all pain and suffering, but their dynamic was certainly not the best, right?
Mhm,
And that had a great impact on me, partly because I'm an empath and I was very,
mm,
very connected to my mother. And
yeah,
so I felt her pain pretty deeply.
yeah,
And I just knew that I did not want to have the same experiences, right?
yeah,
But the way that trauma works, if you're not careful, you find yourself reliving those experiences, and your attempt to distance, you actually move closer to it.
yeah.
But so in my 20s, I started having conversations with my dad, and I think that eventually, I would have relationships,
Mhm,
and I think probably toward my late 20s, I just recognized that I needed to have a redo. I needed
mm,
to have a reset. I wasn't pleased with my patterns of engaging,
mhm,
and I knew I did not want to carry on that way. It wasn't
mhm,
even about the people that I dated. It was just about how I showed up.
mm,
And so I decided at that time that I needed a break
mhm,
and I needed to be more thoughtful and intentional about who I wanted and needed to be
mm,
in the context of relationships.
yeah,
Um, and then, things started to shift. And
mm,
so I ended up in a new relationship in my early 30s, and that was beautiful and tragic in a lot of different ways.
yeah,
But it grew me, and I
mm,
think that I needed to have that experience to take me to the next level of healing,
mm,
right?
mhm,
Um, and it was after that relationship that I started to get deeper into my spiritual practices.
mhm,
So we grew up doing a form of meditation called Agnihotra.
mhm,
And so we meditated consistently in our family. But as you get older, you start to kind of move away from the things that your parents do, and you try to figure things out on your own. But
yeah,
I came back to Agnihotra because I knew that I needed something to ground me
mhm,
as I did this work,
mhm,
and it did. Like
mm,
it was the source. It was like the foundation for me that provided what I needed to
mm,
give other things attention, right?
yeah,
Um, and it was so Agnihotra is just a practice of meditation using fire. It's a whole thing. But there's a community that
mm,
is, in Baltimore, that, and there's communities all over the world that do Agnihotra, but we have a community here in Baltimore
yeah,
called Baltimore Homa
mm,
Community, BHC. And, visually, they probably look like a bunch of hippies, right? But these are some of the most, kind, compassionate, intelligent people that I've had the pleasure of being raised around and then
mhm,
also connecting with as an adult, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I became much more connected to BHC and just kind of surrounded by people unknowingly helping me to heal.
Mm-hmm.
My stepmother and my father are a part of BHC. And so it was easy because my siblings and I have all been kind of in and out of it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think at that time there were more of us that were more involved. So it was like an easy transition.
Yeah.
But it was what I needed in so many different ways. And I know that even when I'm not doing agriculture consistently, it is that thing that I can
Mm-hmm.
always go back to. That
Mm-hmm.
when I'm feeling disconnected, when I'm feeling really anxious, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling a lot of emotions and dysregulated, I can always, and when I say like immediately, when I can sit down and meditate, I feel a release and a relief, right? So it's a part of my toolbox that I use. I've
Yeah.
introduced my children to it. My husband
Mm-hmm.
is a part of the community, and so he wasn't, he became a part of the community. And so it's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say since then, my healing journey. So then after that, time moves on, and I'm doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a family, and
Mm-hmm.
then one of the things that I realized is that kids are your biggest reflection, right? And so they reflect the best and worst parts of you. And so having children um, helped me to recognize what else I needed to kind of clear out and heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that part I recognize as ongoing because it's
Mm-hmm.
always something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is always something, whether it's, not being able to be as patient as I need to be,
Mm-hmm.
not being as thoughtful about my words and how I communicate,
Mm-hmm.
um, feeling frustrated with their big emotions. Like it's always something that shows up that it's like, okay, I need to do something within me to be able to respond to that differently, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so for me as a mom, now that I'm in this different phase of life, healing is not just spiritual, it's mental, emotional, and physical,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because in order to maintain and give my children and my family what they need and deserve, I have to be well in all of these domains,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Ironically, a year ago, I was
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed with MS.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that actually propelled me to focus more on the physical health part of it,
Mm-hmm.
which for me is now just a part of my routine. Like I've always done something, to keep fit, and sometimes more different at different times of my life I've been more engaged than others, but always something.
Yeah.
But now I am very intentionally, very deliberately engaged in physical health practices that I actually very much enjoy.
Yeah.
And that I don't, there's no compromise. It's like I have to do it. Like this is my time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that because when you are a parent and a wife and you want to do those things well,
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like you have to give everything all the time.
Mm.
And so what I like is that I am now learning to kind of balance in a real way my time for myself while also, having time for my family, you know.
Mhm.
And it's not easy because people have needs.
Yeah.
But it's ongoing work. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Have there been, like, insights or frameworks or metaphors that have helped you figure out how to navigate
Mhm.
that balance?
Well, I think that one of the things that I realized, so before I had a family, there was a time where I was in the space where you kind of want what you don't have.
Yeah.
And it's like, as I was getting older, I started to become concerned that I would not have the family that I desired to have.
Mm.
And I remember my sister telling me that, happiness is a choice.
Mm.
that you can't delay your happiness waiting for this thing to happen. Like you got to live your life and things will happen as they need to happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, toward the end of my singlehood, I remember that I said to myself, I don't want to get to this place where I have everything that I want and not have been appreciative of what I had before.
Mm.
I remember like having that conversation with myself a lot,
Yeah.
right? And so the last couple years of being single, I decided to really just, enjoy my time in my life and not yearn for this thing that I needed to trust was going to happen,
Mm.
right? And just try to be
Mhm.
present as possible.
Mhm.
Um, so this idea that happiness is a choice, I didn't always believe that. Like it used to make me mad when my sister would say that to me because I'm like, what do you mean? I know what I feel. I didn't want to wake up feeling this way. This is what I feel.
Mm.
Um, but I believe that. Like I think part of the goal in life is to work through whatever challenges or struggles you have and still
Mhm.
maintain who you are at the core and
Mm.
still be able to experience joy and happiness,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And there are people who can do that and do that well. And I know people like that. And I'm like, that's what I want to, like, that's always my goal, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
how do you find the happiness? How do you tap into the happiness in spite of what's happening around you? You know?
Mm. Yeah.
So that's part of it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So
Mhm.
being able to find joy or happiness in these moments, even as you're like, do I like what space do I carve out for myself and what space am
Mhm.
I carving out for my family and what space am I carving out for work? It's like
Yeah.
even though it's like a constantly moving set of pieces, you're
Mhm.
able to kind of connect to this core idea of like,
Yeah.
I get to be happy right now.
Yeah. Yes. It
Mm.
is choosing to be happy in the moment, even though, because, you realize like, even when you get to where you want, there's always something that has to be figured out, worked out, a challenge that you have to overcome. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like one thing will ever fix all of that. So
Yeah.
it's mindset.
Yeah.
So I recognize that and I accept that as a part of
Mm.
life, you know? Um, yes, because otherwise, I think the alternative is to lean into the unhappiness, to lean into the fear, and I
Mhm.
don't think that's beneficial to anyone's well-being, you know?
Mhm.
Not that I don't have moments, but I try not to stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Of course. Yeah,
yeah,
because we're all, like having a complicated set of feelings is like part of just being a human in the world.
yes.
Um, but yeah, I think I've maybe been exploring something similar lately with like I'm thinking of it as contentment. And I know you and
Mhm.
I have talked a lot of times over the years about how I have all these ideas about
Yeah,
things that I want to do and where I want to go next and what's coming up, right?
yeah,
And I've been reckoning lately with this feeling of like, oh, I keep chasing these ideas or thinking like, oh, well, like when I get to this thing, then I'll be able to settle, or then I'll be able to relax, or then I'll be able to
yeah,
calm down, right? And
yeah,
it's like, wait, but what about, I think just very recently, I've been kind of leaning into like, what if right now was perfect just as it is?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. I mean, when you
Yeah.
really think about it, like, because, anxiety has us thinking and ruminating on what is ahead, the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depression is what's happened in the past. If
Yes.
we stay present in the moment, then that's when we can experience the most joy because I'm just focused on what's happening right now. And right
Yeah.
now in this moment, I'm good,
Yes.
right? My
Yeah.
belly's full. I worked out. I'm
Mhm.
talking to my friend. Like if you just stay focused from moment to moment, you
Yeah.
really can experience more joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least that's what I
Mm.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's a skill set there, and I'm curious if like your Agni Hotra practice
Mhm.
has helped you with that skill set of staying present. Like what are the threads there?
Yeah. So Agnihotra is really about mind, body, and spirit, and again being
Mm,
present, right? So that I think it very clearly, just like any other meditation practice, will focus on being mindful, being present. I
mhm,
think gratitude
mhm,
also is a piece that is kind of reinforced
mhm,
in community. You
mm.
know,
Yeah.
um, I always tell my students like we're not meant to live life alone. And
Mm-mm.
so this is not even about, romantic partnerships. It's just, making sure that we have connection and we have community so
Yeah.
that, when we want to, celebrate and, do all the things, we have people. And when we're not feeling so great, we have people.
Yeah.
And so it's taught me those things and reinforced those things for me.
Mhm,
Um, and it's also taught me again that, everything is really about how you perceive it,
mhm,
right? And so if I
mhm,
choose to perceive something as doom and gloom, then that's the
mhm,
experience that I'm going to have.
mhm,
But if I choose to identify the lesson in it, then there's opportunity for me,
mhm.
right? It's like if I believe that, okay, I didn't expect to be, in these last several years prior to that, I didn't know that in 2024 I was going to be diagnosed with MS, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, initially it's like, oh, okay, I don't know what this is going to mean.
Yeah.
And I remember in the moment when it was even just mentioned as a possibility, I told my husband I didn't wait this long in life to have children not to be available to them,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm,
so that means for me that okay, how do we problem solve this?
mm.
Like what needs to happen in order to again continue to care for myself so I can be present,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm,
so the lesson has been balance,
mm.
like again, balance, like
Mhm,
figure out how to take care of yourself while you're also pouring into your children,
mm.
and I don't know if I would have been so as conscious of it or as deliberate to integrate a routine in the way that I have had I
Mhm,
not been diagnosed, right?
mm.
And so it's, and I feel fine, right? So it's not like I'm, right now I'm good. And
Mhm,
so I don't, it's a thing to me. It's
mhm,
not like it's just a thing. It's just another
mhm.
thing that I have
Mm.
to figure out how to navigate,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think perspective taking, and seeing the opportunity and the lesson in
Mhm,
experiences has been uh, like a component of the spiritual practice. Yeah,
mm.
yeah,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, yeah.
Mm.
And it's interesting because, I have, for me, I've had, as you get older and
Mhm,
I've been talking about this a lot lately because you see things differently in your 40s and you do in your 20s. And when
mm.
we were young, we just, you just living, we had a great time. You were just out living life,
Yeah.
having a good time. But
Yeah.
as you get older, you become more aware of your own mortality because, people pass
Mhm,
unexpectedly, people get sick, people are
mm,
not able to, not even just sick physically, but things change mentally and emotionally for people, and so they're not the
mhm,
same.
mhm,
And it's interesting to see that,
mhm,
and it actually, again, it's a lesson. It's like, okay, what do you need to do to
mm,
ensure that you are present, mind, body, and spirit as long as possible, you know?
mhm,
And so
mm,
when I say the healing journey, like that's what I'm saying. I don't think it ends. I think it is ongoing and I'm okay with that.
yeah,
Um, I'll tell you another piece that I realized in the more recent years.
yeah,
And this is shifting a bit to the more professional side of things.
mhm,
Um, One of the things that I realized I needed to do as I continue to work on being grounded and leaning into my own happiness,
yeah,
and this is in all aspects of my work. So as an instructor, supervisor, therapist,
mm,
um, that I had to show up as authentically as me.
Mm, yeah.
And that was never like a major issue for, like I've never been a and it's just not, I got my stuff. This is just not my thing, right? I've never been a real like envious, jealous person.
Hmm.
It's just, for some reason that just wasn't one of the things that I got.
Yeah.
Instead, for me, it's if I see something or somebody doing something that I'm like, oh, I think I want to do that. Like I truly believe that everything for me is for me.
Yeah.
So you might be doing your thing, but I don't want what you have. I
Mm,
might want to, I see it as a blueprint, but I want what I was for me, right? And so being authentic was always, I think, a part of my wheelhouse.
yeah.
But I realized even working professionally in certain settings that there was a part of me that still felt like or didn't feel as confident or competent or comfortable showing up as authentically as
Mm,
me.
hmm.
And so I'll share this as a Black woman professional.
Yeah.
Working in academia and white spaces is challenging.
Mhm.
And for me, it's not the direct, overt, you know, racism. It is the microaggressions that show up. It
Yeah.
is, what's built into these systems, right?
Mm, yeah.
This is in these systems, right?
Yeah.
It's in our curriculum. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And and so I felt like I needed to show up a certain way
Mm,
to be effective and to be respected.
mm,
And then a couple years ago, I was watching somebody. She was a writer, she's an entertainer, and she's, written a lot of stories, and she's a Black woman, queer, and she said one day that one day she just decided that she was not going to code switch anymore,
mm.
and she was just going to show up as herself.
Yeah.
And that resonated so much with me because I'm like,
Mm,
to hell with that. Like,
yeah.
yes, because
Yeah.
it's work. It's
Yeah.
work. And
Yeah.
what it really means is that you feel like you're not going to be accepted,
Mm,
respected, acknowledged if you're just you.
mm,
And I'm like, that's not okay
mm,
because I know who I am. I know, we all have something. I know what I have. And I
mhm,
know that it's useful and it's meaningful and it's beneficial to who I'm serving.
yeah.
And so when it was easier to make, and it's not like I didn't show up authentically with people, especially in therapy, because I think that's easier. It was more as a professor
Yeah.
and these PWIs,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
And then one semester, the beginning of the year, I said, I'm just going to be me,
mm,
and that was extremely freeing and healing
yeah.
because what I realized is that one, I'm much more comfortable. I would get nervous. Public speaking, ironically, could be challenging for me. Up till about, I don't know, 10 years ago was challenging for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I would still get nervous sometimes when I would start the school year, the semester. But
Yeah.
ever since that shift, it's like I'm me. I'm like, because I'm good at what I do
Yeah.
and I know what I'm doing. And
Yes.
so I just have to show up and do me.
Yes.
And what I realize is that there are people who are sitting in my classes who need that, specifically the young Black girls who have
Yeah.
said to me, "You're the only, but I've been here 4 years, and you're the only Black female professor I've ever had,"
Mm,
or "You're the only professor who actually said my name out loud," or
mm,
"You're the only Black professor or professor who pronounced my name correctly because it was
mhm,
an African name or ethnic name," right?
mhm.
Like that means something to me in a real way.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, I could never go back to present. And it's not that I was like, on the whole other end of the spectrum,
No.
because I can't do that either.
Yeah.
But I recognize that being authentic, showing up as yourself, being confident in that will speak to the people that it needs to speak to,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's been healing.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Hmm. It sounds like there was quite a journey to you getting to the point of making that decision of like, I'm just
Hmm.
not, I'm just not code switching anymore. I'm going to be
Yeah.
authentically me. I'm
Hmm.
curious if there were other, like either internal or external resources that helped you. make that decision and
Mhm.
then follow through with that decision.
I think there were factors.
Mm.
I think some were resources, others were just factors.
Yeah.
I think part of it is I have been fortunate to have been raised in a network in a community of, clinicians, therapists, social workers, psychologists. And so I knew it was possible because I saw how my parents operated, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if ever there were two people who were who they were in every space, um, I have collaborated with my parents in different settings that I've worked in to come
Mhm.
in and do trainings. And,
Mm.
so, in this day and age, everybody has, a lot of Black people have locks,
Mhm.
dreadlocks or whatever. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, people did not, right? It was not a popular thing. In
Yeah.
fact, it was, I remember people saying negative things about my parents as a result
Mm.
of it and feeling embarrassed if my dad had to come up to the school because it just wasn't, people had made assumptions about you if you looked a certain way
Mm.
without knowing anything. And
Mhm.
so, but as an adult, obviously you appreciate those things more.
Yeah.
And so I would have my parents come in whatever space, whether it was a super rigid white space or, whatever, and just watching them walk in. My stepmom had these very, very long locks that were like down past her knees, just very regal, the way she
Yeah.
presented, but she was always her. But they
Yeah.
were like, so they are master clinicians, right?
Mm.
So they were like so good. And I was just watching them do their thing.
Yeah.
And so them modeling that for me was like, okay, it's that's easy. Like I can do that, right? It's in
Mm.
me because I
Yeah.
get that from them.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think I realized that regardless of how I showed up, people are going to have thoughts, ideas, opinions about you, biases against you,
Mhm.
regardless of how I showed up.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had to realize that I'd rather be me
Mm.
and be judged and all that than not be me and still be judged, right? Um,
Yes.
it's just like I don't want to. It's you get to a point where you just don't want to play the game anymore,
Yeah.
and I just didn't want to play the game. And it's interesting because as a result of that, where I teach, relationships have shifted
Mm.
because when things are done that I know are unprofessional and inappropriate and just dismissive to
Mhm.
me,
Mm.
when I know they would not be done to other people, then I have to disconnect.
Mm.
And so, there are people who don't engage with me anymore, who don't speak to me anymore.
Mm.
And I'm 100% okay with that.
Mm.
Because I need to know who you really are too, the same way you need to know who I really am,
Mm.
but I'm not pretending
Mm.
anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the factors. It's like, I need to be me in that setting and then also having models for how to show up as yourself in a real way. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been very, very, very fortunate in this field to have had my family and,
Yeah.
many of us work in this field. And so having them as a blueprint and a
Mm.
support
Mhm.
because I came into the field feeling very confident, probably overconfident. I was young. But my confidence came from them because we were being trained in this work before we, did grad school and got licensed and all of that. We were being
Mm.
trained.
Mm.
We were doing supporting them and doing family therapy in the community before, we were, taught the actual, the social work skills in school. They
Yeah.
was just, my siblings and I, because we were all, working toward, getting our degrees and becoming licensed.
Mm.
There were times because the way that my parents worked, they had their work, their jobs, but then they had to work. And
Mm.
so if they got a call and said, hey, so and so's family is struggling with this, they live
Mm.
over here in West Baltimore, we need you to do some work. We would do pro bono work and they
Mm.
would call us and say, hey, there's a 15-year-old. I need you to work with the 15-year-old. My parents
Mm.
would work with the elders. If there's a young man in the house, my brother might work with a guy but it
Yeah.
was like I didn't know what I was doing. I was just
Mm.
following their lead, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
But I realized that's where I learned how to actively listen, how to
Mhm.
express empathy, how to be compassionate, right? Those skills I learned because I didn't have the other skills. I
Yeah.
was just there listening and being a support, you know?
Yeah.
But that allowed me to feel confident when I actually started working in the field.
Yeah.
And then I learned the skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the foundation was already there.
Yeah.
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 Hearing that, it makes me one of the things that I have really appreciated about working with you is how I feel like love is this very foundational piece of your practice.
Yeah.
And I feel like coming up through like traditional social work school, it's like we're
Yeah.
almost not allowed to say that, right? That like
Yeah.
we have love for the folks we work with, or we have love for our
Yes.
communities, or we have, and I think that it's maybe beginning to change, but I think there's a lot of folks who would be like, no, no, you can't, that's bad boundaries, you
Yeah.
can't love the people you work with.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of hearing about your background and how your family was, it was like this whole family thing, and y'all were showing up
Yeah.
and supporting families, like that is just like all of that feels so loving to me,
Yeah.
that I'm like not now kind of thinking about it, putting all the pieces together. I'm like, of course this is like foundational to how you work.
Yeah.
Um and I don't know if there's a question there.
I have a thought in a response
Yes,
to that. Do you want me to? Okay.
please respond.
So one, thank you, right? Because that's a huge compliment because you're right. The way that we're trained, it's like we don't really talk about that piece.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna tell you, when I teach my classes, that's where I start. I call it
Mm.
heartwork,
Mm.
right? And so when I talk about being authentic, it's not even just how I present; it's what I include in the curriculum.
Yeah.
So I started including heartwork. It's like one of the first lectures.
Yeah.
And there's a real framework for that, and it's really about because I've it's like the work. So you're hired to meet certain deliverables, and you do that, and that's the work. And then
Mm.
there's the work, and the other
Mm.
work is the hard work. It's
Mm.
why are you in this? What is your
Mm.
purpose in this?
Mm.
What are your goals for service, right?
Yeah.
And again, using my parents as a model, I think that part became clear to me earlier.
Yeah.
And so and so when we talk about how we're trained, there are so many things that we've done differently as a family that it's like this is just what we do, and it works, and it's necessary
Yeah.
for the communities that we're serving,
Yeah.
right? There are a lot of people who have received couples counseling with my parents who are part of our extended community.
Yeah.
I have friends who've received counseling with them, and
Yeah.
like we're all connected, and so there's no separation,
Mhm.
and one of my closest friends, after my stepmother passed away, she had been doing individual therapy with her.
Mm.
And she had recorded her last session with her.
Mm. Mm.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Mm.
She told me whenever I'm ready that I can listen to it.
Mm.
But one of the things that she said was that my stepmother told her in a session that 70% of her work is mothering and
Mm.
30% is therapy.
Mhm.
And if you know my stepmom, then you see it because it's not just how she does therapy, it's just who she is as a person. And
Mm.
so if she met you, it would feel the same. If you sat in a session with her, it would feel the same. It's
Yeah.
just who she was.
Yeah.
And I was so glad that she said that because it allowed me to even go deeper into, okay,
Mm.
this is the right path
Mm.
because that's how I work.
Yeah.
When I did community-based therapy,
Mhm.
and I was in the homes of all of my families. That is a different type of work than
Mm.
sitting in an office having people come in or doing virtual work. It is a different level of service. It's a deeper connection.
Mm,
It's just a different requirement. And
yeah.
I was young enough that I could lean into it, right? I didn't
Mhm.
have competing priorities, so I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And so you get to know people on a different level,
Mhm.
and you have to have the experience to fully understand like what that sort of transformation is for yourself, perhaps as a clinician, and then
Mhm.
also for the families that you're serving,
Mhm.
because it's a different level of attentiveness
Mhm.
and being present that you have to have.
Mhm.
You just don't know the people who live in the house, the neighbor next door, the cousin that comes over once a week, like right?
Yeah.
And that work was really good for me at the time because,
Mm,
again, it reinforced the way in which I was taught to work. It made sense to me. It
mhm.
made complete sense to me.
Yeah.
And I thought about this recently and I'll share with you why, because something
Mm.
else came up. I would be invited to every sort of activity, event that you can imagine. I've been to
Yeah.
funerals,
Yeah.
I, birthday parties,
Mhm.
cookouts,
Mhm.
all types of celebrations.
Yeah.
But at that time and that context, it made sense,
Yeah.
right? And it's funny because I teach an ethics course and we talk about different scenarios like that. What do you do?
Mm.
And,
Mhm.
I always reinforce there's no right or wrong. It's what is most useful or helpful to the family you're serving, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But it's like it was the norm for us.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll come out.
Yeah.
And it's funny because recently, and this is the first time this has happened in a long time, I had a
Mhm.
client this week. We've been working together for about 6 years,
Mm.
and I adore her.
Mm.
And her daughter is about to go to her junior prom, and so she invited me to her send off.
Oh.
And it was so funny because my initial reaction is like, I haven't done this in years. Do I go? Does this make sense? Like, what?
Mm.
What do you do? And
Yeah.
I thought about it and I'm like, if I'm available, I don't mind. Like, why not? Because I do love them. I do care about them.
Mm.
And I'm a part of their network, you
Yeah.
know. I have another kid. I've been working with him since his senior year in high school. He's graduating from college this month.
Wow.
And I'm not going to his party, but there's a book that I want to get him. I'm going to send him this book.
Mhm.
Um, because I think it could be, he could really, appreciate it. And
Mm.
so while all of my clients don't need that from me,
Yeah.
I know that when I feel moved to do something like that, I will.
Yeah.
I just
Mm.
will, because
Mhm.
that's how I was taught.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, like, that heart work and infusing heart into everything that you do is something that I feel like so lucky to have gotten to learn
Yeah.
from you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm like, does this feel complete? Are we done? Does this feel like it's about to wrap up? One question that I'm kind of curious about, we talked about how, like, authenticity and working at Towson, like how that
Mhm.
kind of showed up. But are there other ways that you feel like your work as a healer or your healing work has helped you heal?
I do.
Yeah.
When I think about like my clients, like I think clients are just a reflection, like we're all a reflection of each other, like in
Yeah.
a real way.
Yeah.
And so, there are times where, we may be talking about something in particular in session and it
Mhm.
resonates. And it's something that I recognize, oh, you need to give attention to this for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or sometimes it's, oh, okay, you are in a different place now, right? And
Mm.
you've moved through that, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes your clients are just a reflection of where you are and sometimes or where you think you may be.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and so that's always good for me because it's just a reminder that, oh, this might need attention,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This might need attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it becomes a problem if we start seeing ourselves as different from our clients.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
We all have the same basic universal needs. They show up differently,
Yeah.
but we are more alike than different.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, when I am something that's reflected back to me, I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm still working on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely, feel like I have had moments where it's like I am saying something or giving a reminder or giving a reframe, and I'm like, "Ooh, I need that one too."
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Or yeah, sometimes it's like a lesson that I feel like I have, like, just learned, and so I'm getting to pass it along, but it's yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
there's so much of that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good though.
Mm. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
What I know, what I recognize, at this, I feel like I've always known it.
Mm,
I think this work is a privilege,
mm,
to be of service to people. I think it's a privilege. I remember when, like maybe my second job in this field after I graduated from college, we were kind of sitting, and these were people in my network, and we were all sitting around the table talking about, like the question was asked by one of the directors, why we are doing this work, right? Why we
mm,
chose this work. And I think I said it then, like, I recognize it's a privilege that, everyone doesn't have to open up the door for you to come in their
mm,
house. Everyone doesn't have to, sit down and be vulnerable and, in your space, right? Everyone doesn't have to share all their deepest, darkest secrets and
mm,
so people, and this is what I reinforce to my students, like, this is real work. People are looking to you to, like you're not anybody's savior,
mm, mm,
but you are supposed to support on their journey. And so you have to take it serious.
mhm,
You have to take it serious.
mm,
And so I started my private practice when I knew that I was ready to be serious in this space and when I also knew that I had the skills to do this independently,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I guess I say all that to say that I think it's important. I use the term deliberate and intentional all the time, but I think that's what it is. I think that we have to be, I think in general, I am a disciplined person.
mhm,
And I think that being a service provider helped me to be more intentional and deliberate and disciplined in other areas.
mhm,
Um, because I think you need to be some of that in order to be as effective and
mm,
responsible in the work as possible.
mhm,
Um, and so for me, it's just always holding up the mirror when I get frustrated, when I get tired, when I
mm,
need a break,
mhm,
that this work is a privilege.
yeah,
And not only is it a privilege, but I designed this. Like the life
mm,
that I'm living, I created,
yeah,
right? In a very real way. Like I really believe in manifestation. I created this. And
yeah,
so I don't take that for granted.
mhm,
And I try to be grateful for the opportunity to create and to manifest what I envision, because
mm,
everybody don't have that opportunity either.
yeah,
And so when I get tired, like I give myself a break. I'm working on giving myself a break. That's
yeah,
self-care, because again, what it looks like in my 40s looks different than in my 20s. And so I need something different. But
mhm,
I try to always keep in front of me that it's a privilege to be here and
mhm,
you have been able to create the life that you want because of this work,
mm,
right? Like
yeah,
I have been able to create the life that I want for myself and for my family because of this work,
mm, yeah,
you know? And so that's important to me. And so I just try to keep that in front of me.
yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
folks would like to connect with you, if they want you to be their therapist, or if they want to connect with you in some other way, what's the best way for folks to do that?
So the best way is Psychology Today. I have a profile under my name, Gillian Gregory.
Mhm.
People can also email me directly. It's kind of long. I'll say it. It's Gregory Center for Restoration at Gmail.
Okay.
And people are free to reach out either way.
Mhm.
If they're interested in services or, have any other inquiries regarding service.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yay. I will put the link to your psych today in the show notes so folks can also find it there.
Thank you.
Um, and yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this platform. I remember when this was an idea
Yeah,
and it's now happening and I think it's beautiful. So thank you. You are doing it.
we're
Yes.
doing it.
We're doing it. And it's good. It's very good.
Mm,
Thank you.
mm, Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Hello, this is Outro Ellen. Thanks so much for listening today. If you're interested in hearing more healing stories, please subscribe on the platform where you're listening or join my newsletter, Find Your Fierce, on Substack. If you subscribe on Substack, you'll get an email every time I publish an episode, so you'll never miss one. The link to Substack is in the episode description. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can head over to Find Your Fears and join as a monthly, annual, or founding subscriber. Paid subscribers make it possible for these stories to be shared far and wide, and you'll get access to bonus letters, episodes, and events that are just for subscribers. If you want to go above and beyond, please leave us a rating or a review on the platform where you're listening, or share this episode with a friend, frenemy, lover, family member, boss, colleague, or someone who needs it. I'm sending you the love and peace you need to be your best self today and every day. Audio hugs. Bye.